Damn
it, Jay!
That was good. That was good.
That's awesome.
I knew you were going to do that to me.
My hands were not on the button.
It's because this stupid giant screen, I had to look way up in the corner to find the go live button. It gave me away. Oh, welcome everybody. You're back on with Spilling Ink, and I'm back. Thank goodness. I really missed you guys last week, but I've made no secret of this. My health this last couple of years has not been the best. You know, I've been dealing with COVID, and then I've had my own mental health struggles. So sometimes I just can't do it. But I'm here tonight, and that's what matters. You just got to do it a day at a time, right? So,
right.
But we're back. We're excited. It's been really heavy, so hopefully we're gonna have some fun tonight and learn some stuff. We have an amazing guest, but first, now that I've done my amazing introduction, I'm gonna turn things over to the one person that actually knows what's going on here, Captain Trainwreck, Katie Solitis.
That's right, and we've got to pay homage to our first sponsor of the evening, and you know we love Go Indie Now. They are the best channel out there. So let's take a word from Joe, our sponsor.
Hello, everybody. I am Joe Compton, and welcome to our channel, Go Indie Now. This is the place that celebrates indie artists and indie art, and we do so by producing several shows that either air on daily, weekly, monthly, or seasonal scheduling. And within those shows, we aim to educate and entertain you. If you're an indie artist who's trying to figure out how to do this, this is the place you need to be. If you're an indie artist who's looking to promote and doesn't have any avenues and is tired of the grind, this is the place to be. Because remember, it's always time to go indie now.
Right. Always time to go indie now. And we thank Joe for sponsoring our show. Him and Rebekah, our other sponsor, are the reason that we are able to stream in both Facebook and YouTube at the same time live, so we can get all of your wonderful comments going as we're recording. And I can see there's a ton already in the comments.
Yeah. Most of those comments are Rebekah and Joe in the audience making dirty jokes. I'm like, what the hell? What are you doing, guys? And then Tim, thank you. And I do want to say, before Katie gets us too off track, last night I was way ambient up, and so I sent messages to all of our little webcasting friends asking them to send me high-res copies of their logo, because I'm working on a secret project, and I've got to wait till I'm on ambient to keep working on it, of course. But the only person that didn't respond, Joe Compton of Go Indie Now, the big dog. And I'm like, Joe, what the heck? So I had to go steal one from his Facebook page. But I just wanted to call him out there real quick.
Wow.
Yeah,
all right, then. Why don't we switch gears then, and we'll talk about our guest this week. We've got a wonderful guest to introduce to all of our audience out there. Davina, tell us about yourself and your books.
Well, my name is Davina Kotulski, and I'm a psychologist and a life coach in the Los Angeles area. Also an author of self-help books and some fiction as well. And my newest book is called The Manna Paradigm Shift, and it's a combination of cutting-edge psychology and ancient spiritual traditions. And it takes an old concept of the notion of manna from heaven and applies it to basically what we're going through right now, which is how to get through each day expecting the best and creating a mindset that helps you deal with the stressors, deal with the challenges that we're having, and trust that the universe is going to provide for you what you need day by day, moment by moment, and that your job is to just stay present, open, and available, and to not give your power away to outside sources, pharaohs, whether they be politicians or corporations or the almighty dollar, old systems that don't work, that actually shackle us, and including negative thoughts that keep us shackled to limited thinking.
Does that tie into like the law of attraction as well, and in the way that you have to think in the moment about what you actually need instead of thinking of what you want?
Definitely, I love the law of attraction, but it also works with notions of, if you're familiar with like cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of times we limit ourselves by our thoughts and the thoughts that we think. So we can get caught up in a whole bunch of thinking errors, personalization, all or nothing thinking, stuff like that. And so it's looking at those thoughts, but it's also, in terms of the law of attraction, it also looks at how, I'm going to use New Age California terms like vibration and frequency, that we can shift our vibrational frequency. We can shift how we feel and what we focus on based on gratitude. So it's bringing in law of attraction, but it's also bringing in, concepts like metaphysics, but also bringing in psychology, that when we focus on the negative, we create confirmation bias and negative attribution theory, things like that. And so there are specific practices that we can do to stay positive and, if you will, attract better things into our lives and be more aware of when those good things are showing up.
Well, go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned paradigm shift. It's part of the title there.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us what you mean when you say paradigm shift? Because some people might not know what you're referring to or what the word paradigm means.
Yeah, so paradigm is kind of an old system or a system, a way of doing things, and a shift is to start the paradigm shift is to begin living your life in a different way. And we've been taught to work hard and to hoard, right? Like sort of the Western capitalistic, I think Marianne Williamson called it rugged narcissistic approach to life that we've been living is actually really hurting us. These Western values that run, let's say the United States, for example, are very detrimental to our well-being. What they do is they keep us focused on getting more and more, working harder and harder. And Americans work harder than many other countries, right? We take less vacation days. We work longer hours than other countries. And we have this belief that you have to suffer and that you have to, keep on this hamster wheel, so to speak. And you look at other countries, or you look at other cultures and other countries, like let's say Italy and France has the notion of far niente, which is you're doing nothing. You're just being present. You're being a human being and not a human doing. You look at indigenous culture and there's a value of all of life and don't take more than you need, right? And in the notion of the Manna paradigm shift, the Hebrews were enslaved in Egypt. And I know this is a little bit verbose, but the Hebrews were enslaved in Egypt. And they had everything that they needed, but they were slaves. And God spoke to Moses and said, free my people. And they left Egypt. But when they left and they got into the desert, they looked around. They're like, well, what are we going to eat, Moses? We followed you out here because you spoke to God. But now, at least back when we were slaves, at least we had flesh pots to warm ourselves by, and we had the food that Pharaoh gave us. Now we're out here with nothing. And so God heard their cries and gave them manna, which was their spiritual. It wasn't, it's the notion of bread, but it's also spiritual substance or spiritual sustenance that helps them get what they need just that one day at a time. And it would rot by the next day. So you couldn't hoard it. You couldn't give yours away. You got just what you needed. And so that, again, is more in alignment with maybe indigenous values that already exist. And so I'm inviting people to make this paradigm shift and to go back to that kind of thinking where don't give your power away to outside sources. Trust that what you need will show up day by day. Don't hoard. Don't take what doesn't belong to you. Have you ever seen those pictures of the cowboys with the skulls of the buffalo, and they're standing in front of piles and piles of buffalo skulls?
Horrible.
Right? They took more than what they needed, and that's what's destroying our planet.
Okay.
So that's
Okay. No, and that makes sense. Thank you so much for explaining that. I think that's really helpful for everyone to have that knowledge. And I think that it's something that I've personally spoken to my own therapist about. You guys are used to having too much information for me anyway, but this perceived value and what we put value on, and how many times people, including myself, have a hard time assigning any value. If I'm say off work for a year because of my mental health or my physical health, then my personal sense of worth starts to go down, even though it really shouldn't. I'm still the same Jay. I haven't changed at all. But I think that really is a major problem, especially here in the West.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I've said it before too. Like in my family, your worth is tied to your net worth,
Yeah.
not to what you provide or who you are. It's tied to how much is in your bank account, which
exactly. And that shouldn't be that way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We should be able to just be people. But then I think, because my brain is so worried and anxious all the time, I think, well, how what if I'm just not concerned at all about this, and then all of a sudden I'm living on the streets, and I'll go to extremes like that. So I haven't, in 41 years, I haven't been able to figure out a good balance. So I'm still hoping that's in store for me for the future, and maybe something like your work would be beneficial.
That ties to social pressure too, because if you look at, and I know we don't tend to go too deep on political issues, but when you look at arguments over changes in systems of help, social aid and things like that, when you look at like the comment section, when they're being talked about, there's a lot of bias towards people who need help being lazy or not wanting to do things, and they shouldn't deserve these things, instead of what the program is trying to do to help people so that they can better themselves and do more.
Yeah. And I think it's important to give your gifts. It's important to contribute, but we're not machines. And I think that's sort of the direction it goes in, is that there's an expectation that you work harder and longer and more. And then there's a fear that you don't want to make a change, because if you make a change, you could end up homeless. There's all of these fears. So we compete more, we cooperate less.
And we have that lifestyle of we live to work instead of working to live.
Exactly.
Well, some of us do. My work funds my life. It's not I have friends there, but it's not my social interaction circle. And it hasn't, I don't know if it's ever been since, I don't know, maybe high school. But it's just like, okay, the money funds my life, funds my, the things I want to do. And I don't know. And you guys know I work like a dog.
Oh yeah, you do.
But
so that's your investment, right? So you're working to invest in something that's important to you.
Yeah. And now I'm very close to retirement age. So it's like, okay, we have a goal that will get us through retirement, in the manner which we're accustomed to. Mm-hmm. And, we're almost there, which is really good, because we've never had the finest cars. We haven't been, I guess in today's day and age, there's a lot of visible, oh my God, what's the word? I'm missing it. Not capitalism, but I have the best car. I have the newest car. I have this. I have that. We run our cars into the ground because it's economical. It makes sense. It's not a competition to go up, up and up and up. Whereas we see it a lot around us that, every other year, somebody's got the newest car, the newest phone, the newest this or the newest that. It's like they're competing.
That kind of materialism.
Yeah, materialistic. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's not working quite as well as I'd like it to. But Yeah.
Yeah.
Conspicuous
So,
consumption.
Yeah.
That's a great phrase, Timothy.
Yeah.
That's the keeping up with the Joneses mentality. Well, they have that. I need to have that. No, you don't necessarily have to.
No,
You
no.
know, like you said about the car, I do the same thing. I drive my car until the wheels fall off, and then I go get a used car because I know the minute you buy a new car, the second you drive it off the lot, it's lost half its value anyways. So
Exactly.
Well, in quick sidebar, Timothy, said the phrase conspicuous consumption, which is a great phrase, and I actually learned about it not that long ago from watching a show about the Mayan Empire and how they attribute that to the fall of the Mayans, where they actually clear cut so much land in order to build their cities that they could no longer farm on the land. The land was useless, and so the whole civilization crumbled. But anyhow,
it's finding the balance. So that, that's great that you're using what you have. You're not being overrun by this materialism. And again, I think it's not that people don't have to work hard. If you're passionate about something, I mean, I'll stay up late. If I'm writing on something, I will stay up late. I'll get up at, 2 a.m. Oh, I really want to focus on this. But if you're doing that because you're afraid and you're motivated from fear, then that's feeding the wrong wolf, so to speak, right? So
Yes.
yeah. And it's giving your power away to outside sources, and it's giving your power away to fear. So doing something from passion or love is great. Going after what you want from a place of love is fantastic. A lot of people won't pursue their dreams because they're afraid. They're afraid what will happen if I pursue my dreams, if I make a change, if I leave this job that I'm being oppressed in, or if I leave a bad relationship. What's going to happen? I won't have the same financial stability. And so the Manna paradigm shift really is about trusting that life is going to support you. You do what you need to do, and you do your part, and the universe is going to meet you and get you through it. It might mean that it's not this like notion that you're going to have every single thing you want. You might be living in your mom's basement, but for a period of time before something else happens. But maybe that's the best place for you, and there's a reason or whatever.
Interesting.
That makes a lot of sense too. I mean, we are driven mad sometimes by our fear of failure and how bad it can possibly get. And that drives people to do just like that. Stay in a job that they hate, stay in a relationship that they know is toxic because they feel like they have no escape.
Well, and I know that those are my two biggest fears, because again, my therapist, we've talked about this. Number one is loneliness, being alone, and number two is failure. And the loneliness, I think, is valid. I don't want to be alone, but the failure thing, that's something that it was built in with our society. But I actually have a writing question. Being since this is kind of a writing and publishing show, Katie, I know you like to take it off track, but
I guess we'll allow it this time.
The three of us write frivolous fiction that's just meant to entertain people and let people escape. And I know you have a novel as well, but your other books actually have real substance, and they're meant to help people. Tell me a little bit about the kind of the thought process and the responsibility that goes into that, because it seems like it would be a little frightening to me, writing something that might have a big impact on someone else's life, aside from entertainment.
Well, so I think I briefly mentioned to you that off the air that my first book was called Why You Should Give a Damn About Gay Marriage. And it was to help empower LGBT people to be able to speak up for why they needed equal rights, and to help non-LGBTQ people understand why it mattered, right? And what I found with that book was that, books can empower people. They can help people advocate for themselves. They can help people feel like they can get out there and change the world. And so after writing that, I wanted to write books to help people change themselves, because I think the personal is political. And that when we can improve ourselves and take back our own power, we can shift the outer landscape. my first self-help book was called It's Never Too Late to Be Yourself, Follow Your Inner Compass and Take Back Your Life. And I found that it really resonated with a lot of people who are in quarter life or midlife crises, right, or transitions, to take those shifts and to leave, like we just talked about, leave those relationships that were toxic, leave jobs that were no longer satisfying, retire early and take the trips that they had been wanting to take, but they've been putting off for so long. And I don't know, it feels good to write those books. It feels good to sort of write a book that's like a therapist or life coach, in a book, because not everybody can afford therapy, but many people can afford a book, and to just support them in living their best lives. I mean, I think that when people are happier, all of us are happier. If one person improves their life and is living, from their heart and happier in the world, then it just impacts all of us. So that's sort of the gift that I want to give back, I guess. And I encourage people to take risks in a way that they can handle. So don't, jump without the net if you're not ready for that. Take smaller baby steps. You can baby step your way into radical transformation in your life, but you don't have to jump off the bridge without a net.
Okay. Well, no, I know with us just writing fiction, we'll get, emails or reviews, and they'll say things like, your book kept me up all night, or I absolutely love this character, or, I'm shipping these two characters together, which I just learned what that meant not that long ago. But and those always feel great. But do you ever get responses like that where people write you and say, your book really helped me, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's wonderful to get those kinds of emails, or to run into people on the street that have recognized me or whatever, have read a book. Yeah, I do. I mean, I remember one person came up to me and said, I read your book, I gave it to my dad, and he finally understood me as an LGBTQ person and why, I wanted to marry the person that I loved. I've had people contact me and say, I read your book and I was able to quit my job. The people have started their own businesses after reading my book, and just I felt better. I read your book. I felt better. I started these practices. I was able to begin meditating. I was able to, address some of these thoughts that I had that have been holding me back. And I think that's the best thing in the world, right? When you write something and people say either I loved your characters, right? They really spoke to me, or I related to them, or they can share with you with self-help, like, this got me through the dark night of the soul I was going through and helped me get my life back on track.
God, that's amazing. And that's like my dream, is just to do or say or write something that changed somebody's life for the better. I mean, my ultimate dream is to be eaten by a great white shark after saving someone else from the shark attack. But, so I've got that kind of complex going on. But no, that's just phenomenal. That makes me so happy to hear. And you do public speaking, and you do courses online as well, right?
Yeah, I do. I have the Manna Paradigm Shift 8-week class that will be finishing up at the end of March, but I'll be starting the 30-day Manna Challenge, which will start April 1st. And people can participate. They'll get an email every day, and we'll have some live classes as well. And so I offer that. And since the book came up, I'm going to do that a couple of times a year. And I also I do online workshops. On a side note, I also am a past life regressionist. I train with Brian Weiss, Many Masters, Many Lives. If you've ever read his work, it's fantastic. He was a psychiatrist that did hypnosis in his practice, and one of his clients went back beyond a childhood trauma to a past life trauma. And then he had a whole coming out process, because to come out in psychiatry as a past life, to share this, he was afraid he was going to lose his career. It was in the early 90s or late 80s. Anyhow, I trained with him about 7 years ago, and I also do past life regression work with people. So that's amazing too, and that's in a whole other subject. But I mean, really love to support people in digging deep spiritually and not being afraid to take risks in this lifetime and dealing with death anxiety, just the whole, all of it. I mean, I think that, again, we're here to live our best life, and whatever that gets in our way, from sharing our gifts and talents and following our hearts and, supporting one another, that's what I'm here to do. That's my passion.
Yeah. Well, and to all of you out there that are watching or listening, I just want you to know right now that I've already called this. I am going to be writing the past life regression therapy, creepy paranormal story. You guys don't get it. That's I'm taking it.
That's awesome.
I know you're all writing it down in your little notebooks. That's mine.
That's great.
That is such a fascinating, the whole idea of being able to revisit past lives and maybe see what's kind of tying to this life and stopping you, because we have these unexpected blocks, things that we can't get over, and it may not be something that happened during our life or that we can remember happening during our life that stopped it. So that's just such a fascinating topic. I could probably pick your brain on that one for hours, but another show. I won't lock this show up with that.
What happened while I was gone with COVID? When did we get so professional? What the hell?
What? We were professional last week.
We were very professional.
Oh, come on. We were showing,
have you guys seen that?
We were showing our disaster covers. We were having a good time.
Well,
so I do have a question, though, that pertains to this book, so we can stay on topic. Trying to stay on topic this time. So when it comes to
go ahead, Katie.
Okay, all right. So when it comes to this one, the program that you've got, and yeah, Jay.
Oh, that's great. That is so cool, Katie.
We're doing so good. So good. All right. So back to the question. So in the program that you've set up, obviously there are steps to take in order to get yourself on the right track.
Yeah.
What is the biggest roadblock that you find people have to actually really taking this on and really following it all the way to the end?
Consistency. We all have really good intentions, and it's consistently doing the practices. So we all know, meditation is good for us, but we have to schedule it. If we don't schedule it, we're not going to do it. Right. There are several, steps to create what I call a Manna mindset, or to do the 30-day Manna challenge. And that's why I wanted to create a 30-day Manna challenge class, to help people take the steps every day, because we need that support. We need to be consistent. We need structure, just like writing, right? Like, you're going to write more if you have a consistent structure. If you have scheduled it in your day and you set aside time, you're going to meet with somebody, you'll do it. Same thing with meditation, gratitude practices. If you've scheduled it, you've built it into your time, and you have a consistent way of doing it, you're more likely to do it.
Once you make it a habit.
So true.
Make it a habit. Thank you.
It takes
the consistency thing. Oh man, that's my Achilles heel right there.
Yep. I was doing so well on exercise before I got COVID. I kind of just sucked it right out. I was doing that daily. So.
Well, and also having support, right? Like, we're more likely to do something if we have a tribe or a community that we can do it with, Same thing with writing. You're more likely to get more writing done if you're in a writing group or a class, or if you're, sharing with somebody, you have an accountability buddy, you're just more likely to get it done. If we try to do things all alone, we might just kind of spin in circles, but we're more likely to get it done when we have accountability or a tribe.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Well, Katie and Jane were kind of their own writing coaches for a while there when you were working on your books together, weren't you? You were pretty much in contact all the time.
He's out of touch, isn't he? We're doing it again.
No, doesn't know.
Later this year, we're doing it again. Yes.
Are you continuing the same series, or are you starting a new one?
Starting a new one.
Ooh,
And honestly,
any...
I'm using that as my kick in the pants, because I know when I'm in the zone and I have the time and I can write, I can put out the books, but I haven't been in the zone at all. I haven't had the time. My schedule is completely scattered. I need that accountability. And I know Jane, where are you? Right there. Jane will bug me and will email me and will ask me for things. And there'll be that pressure of, I need to make my word count to send it to her before she gets mad at me. So that will kick me in the pants enough to get it done.
Hopefully I can find my groove.
I've got all the time in the world right now, but I don't have a plot right now. I've got some cool characters that are flowing around, but I don't really have a plot for them. So I'm just reading lots of books and listening to people and hoping that something sparks an idea. But in the meantime, I'm still doing the sewing, and I feel like the sewing has been kind of therapeutic for me. It's nice teaching myself. I'm going to attempt to sew a dress here the next few days, although I got the pattern and I'm like, I don't understand the words on this pattern. There's no YouTube tutorial going along with this. What the heck? I'm used to the kind lady showing me in detail everything that's going to happen in the YouTube video, but no.
Well,
so
I'm a home economics nightmare, so I can't help you.
Go ahead, Davina.
Well, I love that you're sewing too, because if you don't have a plot in mind, it's just so good to do things that seduce your muse, and that you love, that you enjoy, that feel creative, and just I think Julia Cameron talks about filling the well. And I think that the more of that we do as creative people, the happier we are, the more that creativity will come out later. We're just feeding ourselves. We're taking care of the muse. And I think the muse needs to be seduced and played with, and that really helps the writing process.
No. Rebecca's going to have
Rebekah, I was just thinking Rebekah Jonesy. Yes. Don't even, because
what is she going to say?
Oh, she is a dirty.
Give her an inch and she will take it a mile. Yes. But we love that about her. She always gives us a good laugh.
Davina, tell us about your novel sitting back behind that side of you.
I got a cover update. So Behind Barbed Eyes. So I worked for 13 years as a psychologist in a women's prison. And I started working on this book before Orange is the New Black came out. I should have worked faster, but I had to go through a lot of experiences first to feel safe. And I had to quit before I was ready to publish it. I actually didn't feel safe publishing the book while I still worked there, because part of what I do is I do address some of the issues that go on in women's prison, which is sexual assault by staff. But it's I wanted to write a book that showed the challenges of being a psychologist in a prison where your client is, you're sort of torn between two energies. You're paid by the government, which is actually your client, but you're helping people who are incarcerated. And you're trying to help them better themselves. But if you want to help somebody get better as a therapist, you have to see the best in them. You have to find something good in them. It can be very challenging to find something good in all people. Some people make it really hard to find, something redeemable, but most people have something redeemable in them. But I wanted to write what it was like to try to do your work in a system that wants you to help people, but is pushing against that doesn't, they say that they want you to help, but actually your job is just keep people there. Make sure they don't kill themselves, make sure they just get through the process. And so you're just dealing with these tensions. And it wants to be a very black or white environment of good and bad, but it's not. Everything's gray, right? Everybody's gray. Everybody's has a shadow side, and no human being is perfect. And so kind of creating that dynamic tension. And so it's about an incarcerated bank robber and a clinical psychologist, and how through their work together, they're both changed. It's a redemption story really for both of them, and shows the challenges though of what it's like to try to do healing work in the prison system.
Now, without telling me the whole plot, can you tell me, how would you classify this book? Is this like a drama or a thriller, or what type of people would this appeal to, or what genre?
I would say it's more of a drama with thriller elements, and ultimately a redemption story. Yeah.
Okay. It sounds fascinating. It really does. I mean, I would sit with you and drink coffee and just listen to your stories from back in the old days, as horrific as some of them might be, because I think that would be absolutely fascinating. My wife and I are documentary junkies, and I know we've hardly scratched the surface of anything that goes on, but just some of the stuff that you learn is like, whoa, you had no idea that these kind of things actually happen here in our country. And
yeah, it is a tough environment, and I wanted to tell a story that respected everyone. Without going into a whole lot of politics. I mean, we're in a time where there's a sense of like choose a side, and it's like you can critique what's going on. You don't. It's very complicated, but I wanted to write a story that reflected that it's just not black or white. It's not. There are gray issues in prison, and we need to help people. There are so many mental health issues, especially for women. I'm going to say that 50% of women that are incarcerated have experienced childhood sexual abuse or physical abuse, or both. And so you've got a lot of women who have just right out of the gate had a really crappy life, low self-esteem, and then they just kind of they go from one bad choice to the next bad choice, trying to cope with their trauma, into the drugs and alcohol. And, other countries look at substance abuse as a health issue and a mental health issue, not an incarceration issue. And, so I really think there's a lot that can be done there. And we need to address domestic violence and sexual abuse of, girls and boys, because it just leads to self-hatred, self-loathing, and self-destruction as they age.
Well, and that's considered one of the predictors for future criminal behavior too, is trauma as a youth. And wow. I mean, it just, I hate to say it sounds incredible, but it really does. Not that it's great subject matter, but the story itself sounds like something that I would love to read. I'll definitely be ordering that. Do you by chance have autographed? I'm so bad with this. Do you have signed copies available, or do you need to order them from Amazon?
I can send signed copies. Yeah, if anybody wants to, if you want to, just send. You can find me on my website, davinakotulski.com, or the mannaparadigmshift.com, where you can get a free chapter of the new book. But also send me a message, and I can let you know how to get a signed copy. Yeah. Awesome.
I know a lot of us love to collect signed books from the author.
Very kind.
It's my favorite. I mean, I read so much on the iPad nowadays. The only books that I buy in paper are ones that have been signed, so I can add them to my hoard.
Those become special.
They do. They are special. I've still got all of your books, including the hardcover that you bought me, that you brought for me, Katie. And I'm still insanely jealous of the hardcover. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had my own hardcover because it's so pretty. They're just such a cool thing to have.
They're doable as a self-publisher. They are so doable.
Well,
speaking of self-publishing, I did want to ask how you approached getting your work out there. Did you go through a traditional publisher, or did you decide that you want to just take it on yourself, have 100% control, and go into self-publishing?
Great question. So the first book I did with a traditional publisher. And when I was going to do my second book with them, they ran into financial issues and breached contract with me. And I could have waited another year or something for the book to come out. But I was in this fantastic coaching program at the time and learned that, and I also didn't want the book to sit. It was another marriage equality book. And I was like, oh my God, this is supposed to be the first post-Prop 8, which was the law that banned same-sex marriage in California, book to get out there. And if I wait, what I've just written is going to no longer be relevant. So, I basically, cut contract with them. Yep. And I self-published, and I learned a lot about the process. I was like, damn, there's some really fantastic aspects of this. There's some things that I don't like, but there's other things that are really wonderful about creative control and, how I can sell the book, what I can do. And then this is going to be very new age woo-woo, but this psychic told me after I moved to Los Angeles, she said, you need to create your own publishing imprint and don't waste your time with traditional publishing anymore. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I still did some things here and there. But I realized, I need to do that because I don't know if you know about Louise Haye. Have you heard the story of Louise Haye? She started with a pamphlet, and now she's she's deceased now, but she started Hay House Press, which is one of the largest spiritual. Yeah. So she started in her 60s with a pamphlet, and now it's this internationally known press. And so I was like, I need to listen to that psychic, and I need to start my own press, and then I can have the creative control that I want to have. And I just find that I'm happier that way. And I've talked to a lot of other writers that are, international best-selling writers, and they will say, it's sort of stupid to have an agent in a lot of ways and to go through a traditional press because they take more of your profits and they're only going to promote you for a certain amount of time. And, so I kind of agree with that. Now, if somebody approaches me and wants to do something, I might consider taking a book and putting it into their catalog. But I do like having creative control, and with Lightning, Ingram Lightning Source, you can get your books and everything. You can still be at every bookstore if you hustle and in a good way, and you like to get out there and speak and self-promote. I think there's a lot you can do. The thing that people need to do, though, is they need to make sure they hire an editor, and they need to make sure that their books are good, because a lot of self-published books, they don't have the quality. It's very narcissistic, and it's just kind of, feeding their own needs. If you want it to be a good book, you still need to invest, and it's expensive. It's an expensive process. You're going to spend money, and you should spend money on improving your writing and having other people read your work. And, it's you still have to do that.
You've got the nodding gallery going on over here. Everybody nodding. Not
the first time you've heard that advice on this show.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what. That's in the first book I ever published, and this is naughty to even admit this, but my mother was my editor. Mom's a retired English teacher, so she actually knows her stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that book has sold better than any of my other books. That first book that didn't have a proper editor. But I did learn after that you so need to hire an editor. And Katie is an editor. She knows how much work that is. It's a skill. You need to hire someone else, not yourself and not your friends. Your friends are great for reading the book and providing you with feedback, but invest in that real editor. It's gonna make all the difference.
Right. And writing, as we know, is rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. Do you guys have, do you do Audible? Do you do audiobooks? Have you read your books or hired?
What's Audible? Katie, have you ever heard of Audible?
That's a really hot subject right now. Hashtag Audiblegate. If you are not up on the news, definitely follow that.
Okay.
In fact, we'll be talking about that next week. I'll be doing an update on the Indie News Show. There are a couple of things going on, and I'll share with you where they're at so far. And Colleen has also put out another really interesting post about the breakdown of royalties and what you're actually getting paid and how Audible is double dipping before they even pay you.
Oh,
it's really interesting.
I know that because I'm finishing up the audiobook here for this one.
Yeah, I'll send you the information so that you can check it out. But there's a lot going on right now. This has been going on since October of last year. And we're there.
See, I got to show up on a podcast to learn what's happening. As you can't, it's hard to write and edit and know everything in the business. Yeah,
it is, and that's one of the frustrating parts about being in indie is you have all this creative control, but then everything else is your responsibility too. And how do you keep up with all that? But yeah, we've had a couple episodes about the drama with Audible, and basically they're kind of giving indie authors the shaft, so to speak. They're screwing over indie authors right now, and so. But yeah, I definitely recommend if Katie sends you some information, definitely check that out because I didn't have any idea how serious it actually was. But we have a question here from Tim Niederreiter. How deep do you pull source material from your own lives and psychologies? How conscious are you of it? Thanks for the question, Tim.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, I think that. Well, first of all, I share personal stories in my nonfiction. And so basically what I'm doing is I try to share a story of what I've gone through or what my clients have gone through and how to use that, how that's shaped why I'm writing the book or why I'm teaching what I'm teaching and why it's relevant to me, it's relevant to my clients. In Behind Barbed Eyes, I mean, while not all of the experiences are my own, certainly some of the conflicts were what motivated me to write the book in the first place. And also some of the stuff that the inmate character experiences, it's some of my shadow side too, you bet.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and I'd like to answer this too, Tim. I know you and I have talked before on your podcast, but if you read my books, Tim, and I think that you'd enjoy a Flutter of Darkness. It's just a bunch of short stories, so it's easy to digest. But all of my stuff, I find looking back at it, all of my characters, they're all kind of gray. Nobody's neither really good or bad. And all my plots, there's just this sense of something bad's always going to happen, and I think that really reflects how I've gone through my life with just this constant fear that, okay, I got married yesterday. Everything's wonderful. I've got these amazing kids, but all of a sudden there's the dark storm cloud, but something bad's going to happen. It's a constant 41 freaking years. And so that's definitely reflected in the writing. I didn't do it on purpose, but I read back through it. I'm like, oh yeah, I got some issues. What about you, Jane? Anything like that for you? I mean, I know you murder a lot of people in your spare time, but
we all know, because I've said it many times, however aggravated I get at work or however bad a day I have at work is directly reflected in the stories on how many injuries and killings happen. There is a direct correlation because it is my therapy. I can't punch somebody. I'm angry. It's just not right. But in my book, my character can. It's vicariously living through fiction in that way. But from my own psychologies, I mean, yes, I worked through a lot of the stuff that happened to me in high school. And I could see now I can see some, common themes in the earlier books. That was probably my self-conscious working through some of those hard things that happened. I was not 100% conscious of it as I was writing, but
and I think the less conscious we are of it, I think the more genuine it is when it gets read. I don't know, maybe I'm making that up, but it feels like if I try to build something into it, it comes across as contrived, and of course it is contrived, but it just doesn't have that authenticity. What about you, Katie?
I think we put a lot of ourselves into our story, and so naturally what we're working through or what's going on is going to reflect that. And I certainly can look back on different books that I've written, and I can tell the ones that were written during very dark times versus the ones that were written in not so dark times. Jay, you remember the Chronicles of the Uprising? I was going through a lot of issues during that time, and that is probably the darkest book series I've ever written.
Still
but
my
then
favorite.
Again,
I love
the character. The character was the opposite of me. She was not afraid to say and do and stick her nose in things she probably shouldn't. So it was like working what I wish I could be through my stories.
You know what? Well, you know what's funny, because was it Mia? Was that her name?
Mira.
Mira. Reading that, and it sounds so silly because Mira's a gladiator vampire, but she reminded me so much of my wife Heather. It was unbelievable because Heather she's not a woman that anyone will mess with. She is so fierce. I mean, she's the sweetest lady, but everybody knows you don't mess with Heather. And Mira
I can see that. And I love Heather. I think she is the sweetest woman out there, but I can see that.
But I wouldn't mess with her. Thank you for the question, Tim. That was a really good question. And Tim's podcast too is really great. Alive After Reading.
Yeah.
Rebekah says yes. She can see all of us in our work, and yes, we need help.
But that's why we've got Davina here to give us some help. We need to shift our paradigms.
I mean, I don't know. I would imagine this is true again for you guys as well, that writing is my therapy. And if I don't write, I go crazy. Like I have to be writing. I have to be working on something. And that's that my anxiety goes there, my frustration goes there, whatever, extra energy, it's focused in on my writing, and it makes me feel like something is moving forward in my life, that I'm creating something. I have to create. Like, I can do great work as a psychologist, a therapist. That's great. That pays the bills and that helps other people. And I like that. But the writing and the creating, whether it's nonfiction or screenplay or whatever, that's sort of my me time. And that's my therapy. And like you said, it's a great place to work through issues, to struggle with our own inner demons, and to have them work their issues out on the paper. Have our protagonists work it out, or whatever it is. Writing allows me to be my best self in a lot of ways. On the day-to-day, I might have a shitty day, but if you read my book, it's like, it's the best, like the Manna Paradigm, it's the best energy. It's the highest self, right? It's the highest reminder. But I'm human, and I'm not going to have, every day is not going to be the best day, but I can go back to one of my books and I can also get inspiration from it, and it motivates me to be better, to feel better.
Well, and I think also writing is a way of asserting some type of control over our world. When we can't control what happens to us during the day, and even though our writing may be influenced by it, ultimately we are the captain of that ship. And to use a silly old metaphor, but yeah, I think it helps to have some kind of feeling of control over things. And even other creative endeavors, people who make music, or different art forms, or craft, or sew, whatever it is, it's you're trying to assert some kind of control over your environment when you may feel completely lost otherwise. So
yeah, that's
a great point.
Your point on, if you don't write, you get basically cranky. That's why I started writing fiction. Because for years I was a business analyst writing, technical documents, but I was creating something. I was helping people, understand each other. And then I went into managing VAs, and I wasn't writing. I wasn't creating. And I was going nuts. And I'm like, I can't do this. I need to do something. And my daughter asked, well, if you could do anything, what would you do? And that was the end of it. And here I am today, 50 some books later.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And I started in 2007.
I mean, that's really prolific.
Yeah. I'm always awed when I see your website. I'm just like, wow, that is a lot of book covers. that's a lot of books.
And I'll have more.
Well, Rebekah says, tit for tat, you guys have seen my soul as well and other bits. So if y'all haven't figured it out, Rebekah she's a publisher and an author. She's a good friend of ours, and she also writes a little bit of naughty stuff. So we've all maybe seen more of Rebekah.
My favorite beta readers.
And she's the sponsor of our show too.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Rebekah's amazing.
Yes.
And she sponsors the Unafraid podcast, which I'm extremely grateful for. Rebekah's amazing. Oh yeah, we should do. Katie, you should do your thing with where you're talking.
Right. Since we're talking about her, we might as well give her the plug right now. So, Mistress Rebekah Dirty Jonesy, you will be entertained by her work, believe me. And she does live readings every Wednesday on her Facebook group. So you definitely want to check those out because she is a fabulous reader and she's got a lot of great stories with a lot of really fun characters.
In Rebekah, not to keep talking about the other podcast, but I'm doing it in a way that I'm talking about Rebekah, because Rebekah, I really do appreciate you. I used to not talk very much about Unafraid on this show, and I typically don't talk about a lot of LGBTQ issues on Facebook in general because I wasn't as out as myself there on Facebook, mostly on Twitter. But Rebekah and her husband both had listened to the first few episodes, and she got in touch and was like, I really want to sponsor this show. And it was just really heartwarming that somebody really cared about the content I was making and wanted to make sure it kept going for people. And yeah, she's a really great sponsor to have. Her and Joe both. I'm not leaving you out, Joe. I know you're amazing.
So basically Davina J wants you on that show.
I'd be honored. Thank you.
I would love to have you. You know what's funny? And okay, I'm going to take up more time now, Katie. Sorry, it's happening.
Well, Davina wanted to say something, and I interrupted.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say because I've talked to my therapist about my show quite a bit, and how I really wanted to have a professional speaker or author, doctor come on to talk. And I was like, I just haven't met the right person yet. And then so I was reading your info. I was like, oh, could this be it? Could this be the moment?
Paradigm shift. Manna. So you're answered prayers for me, and I'm answered prayer for you.
There we
go. Yeah, I was just going to ask you guys what's harder to write, a sex scene or what do you enjoy writing more, a sex scene or a murder scene?
Oh, let me answer first, Jane. Okay,
so I'm like, I have to think about that.
Yeah, you think about it. Let me answer first. For me, because I love sex scenes in books and movies, and I think they're wonderful. Many people enjoy sex. So, however, and I like having them in my work too, but I have a tough time writing them. Because I'll get into writing it, and then I'm like, okay, but I don't know what to do. Am I being too clinical? Am I not being trashy enough? Am I not being passionate enough? And then I get all flustered, and I'm like, all right, it's just a fade to black scene. That's it. Whereas murders, no problem. I've got that covered. I've read enough horror novels that I can do that. All right, now that the amateur has gone, you two go ahead and take over.
Who's next?
Katie?
We're saving the best for last.
I prefer writing fight scenes. That's my favorite. I really get into writing fight scenes, and you can see my sword back behind me here. I will sometimes practice moves so that I know how to write them too, which makes it even more fun.
Wait,
do you practice the scene ones?
That's what I was going to ask.
You practice the sex scene ones. No,
You beat me by 2 seconds.
Sadly, no.
That's why she was axe throwing.
yeah. And Rebekah just wrote, she likes both at the same time. Oh, jeez. How about you, Ben?
Yes.
Which one do I like to write more?
Yeah. Which one do you like to write more, or which ones are harder, or whatever? No pun intended.
I like there you go. I don't know. I mean, Katie's read some of my sex scenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the murder scenes. I don't.
Which does she do better, Katie?
I think sex.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah, because the murder scenes and the fight scenes and things like that. Fight scenes are harder for me than murder or sex.
There's a lot of choreographing, right? To imagine how it's done. Yeah.
So apparently I'm good at sex scenes. Thank you, Katie.
They're very good. Yes.
If anybody
the
ever
whole
needs
fairy tale shorts that you wrote, I couldn't wait to jump on those every time.
me or Jane?
Jane's.
Okay, because I did those too.
Oh, that's right, you did. Shoot, both of you did fairy tales.
Well, and if anybody ever needs a course in writing sex scenes, let's see if where do I find Rebekah's banner again? Because I can't remember the name of that series here. I think it's Mandy. Yes, Mandy. Okay, upper left hand corner there. I thought when she sent these to me, I thought it was like a romance kind of thing, like a steamy romance. It's not. it's pretty hardcore stuff. And I was like, holy crap. And that's what really let me know that, wow, I cannot write these at all. I cannot. I'm woefully deficient. So anyhow. All right. Well, now that we've gone over that, I think we're about at our time.
It's a good place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy ending?
Happy.
Yeah, sorry.
Every time you had to do it, didn't you? You had to do it.
Couldn't be helped. Sorry.
Davina, is there anything else you want to say before we start wrapping stuff up?
I want to just thank you for, having me on, Spilling Ink tonight. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with you guys, to meet you. And it was fun. I know I'm a little probably more of a serious guest because of the subject matter that I deal with, but it was fun to laugh with you. And I just want to remind people they can go to the mannaparadigmshift.com and get a download of the free chapter. And they can also get another free chapter of the other book at my davinakotulski.com. And if they like it, great. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you supporting authors. We really need to, just keep supporting one another. And I appreciate that.
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen. Authors need to support each other. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming on the show with us and talking today and, sharing your insights. You are welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. Thanks.
And for all of our audience out there, we will have the links in the show notes, so you can check that out after the show and find Davina's work. We will be back again next week, as always, with some new people to introduce you to and some more fun conversation and a little bit of derailing by Jay, right?